Wise and precise financial management. It is probably the most boring of the 8 achievements, but maybe one of the most important ones. If we don't keep an eye on our money, it can very easily get spent or disappear from different expenses. So we really want to have visibility of our money and understand what we're doing and how we can do it well. When we talk about getting precise and wise, we really want to, first starting point is to get legit. Set up a bank account, set up a business. Yes, we're a business of one as a freelancer, but go set up an S corporation or an LLC or some type of business entity. One for the protection, but there's also financial benefits. As an S corp, we can pay ourselves a dividend for some of the income that we earn, which saves us a little bit of money on taxes. And so we want to get legit. We also want to have a bank account. By keeping it separate, it makes it a lot easier to manage it. It also protects us. Several years ago, I was audited by the IRS, and the way that I had everything set up made it really difficult to challenge a lot of the things that they were saying. And so I ended up, as a result, going forward with my business, I changed it to an S corp. And so as a freelancer, that's what I have as an S corp, and it really gives me the most protection and the financial benefit. So we want to get legit. We want to set up our bank accounts and really manage our freelancing separately from our personal finances. We also want to make sure that we're easily tracking our expenses, our time, and our invoices. Again, we want to be tracking our expenses, our time, and our invoices. So expenses, we just want to make sure we know what we're spending and we're not going above what we're able to afford. We want to manage our time, especially for billing hourly. But even if you're not charging hourly, you still want to know how much your time you're spending for different clients and what you're working on, so that if you're doing a fixed fee, you can at least at the end of the project run a report of how much you earned and how much time you spent. If you are charging hourly, then it's important, for me to and for those that do that, to really understand how many hours you're logging when you're logging them, and being able to report on those so that you can bill appropriately. And then invoices, we need to make sure we're sending them. We need to make sure that they're being tracked in a system so that we can follow up when they're late or when they don't make it through, and make sure when there's issues, we're able to resolve those and quickly view and have visibility in what's going on. And so these 3 areas, if we just miss one of them or 2 of them or even all 3, it could be devastating to our business, and we can find ourselves in a financial situation very quickly that we're not happy with. I'll give you an example. I have a client that I'm working with, and I switched my invoicing systems recently. In the new system, the invoices weren't going through, and I noticed that they hadn't been paying them, but I didn't really do anything about it. I figured they'd eventually get resolved, and so the oldest invoice was about a month old, and I was like, all right, something's up. So I ended up looking at it. Well, turned out all of my emails were going into their spam folder, and so if I had addressed that a few weeks earlier, then I would have gotten paid earlier, and I wouldn't have had to deal with that issue so late. So even an experienced freelancer such as myself can still face these issues, and they crop up, and it's just a matter of being proactive and continually, fighting against the different realities that come closing in as freelancers. Lastly, what we want to do, we also want to figure out when we are invoicing, we want to make sure we're getting paid and we're paying either early or on time. And so what are your terms? For me, I used to do net 15, which meant they could pay 15 days after. I decided to do it at net 10, which would give me, it would become late 5 days earlier, which would give me a reason to follow up. And so I ended up making that change, and that helped get cash flow, make it a little bit cleaner and tighter, as well as get paid a little bit earlier. If I really wanted to get paid, early, then I would actually expect payment as soon as I send an invoice due on receipt, and even expect payment before I start work on projects. A lot of the clients I work with, it'd be a little bit difficult to do that with, so I try and adjust it so that it's practical for them, as well as not too much trouble for me. So being like net 30 or net 60, which I've heard and have experienced before, is not something that I would recommend, and I would definitely push against that unless it was just the absolute only way to do it. But usually, even in those cases where you have companies like that, they always have a workaround. So if you push hard enough, you're likely to be able to get accommodated accordingly. So and when it comes to precise and financial management, we want to make sure that the way we pay ourselves and our taxes are turnkey. They may not always be easy, but if we can at least keep things organized, keep our expenses in line, be tracking them. When it comes to paying ourselves, I use a payroll company, so they'll actually take the money from the business account and run a payroll and put it into my personal account, and they deal with the taxes as part of that process. And so I'll run a payroll every month, and so the idea is when I get to the end of the year, they've done all the tax pieces, they've done the reporting that needs to be done with the IRS, and I simply just run the initiate the payrolls. And so it makes my life easier. I do pay them a fee, and so it's just a trade-off. Do I want to pay that fee or not? And I found that it's been worth it for me to avoid that headache of the payroll and taxes. So that's part of the puzzle. I also, at the end of the year, I pay a, a tax CPA to go through my taxes and run both my personal and professional business returns and evaluate everything and make sure that if there's anything I need to do or adjust or change or pay, that I can take care of that. And so I try and make those just easy as possible. And by using a CPA and a payroll company, I've taken a lot of the responsibility off my plate and I've outsourced it for a small fee to be able to help me with that. And so that's part of precise and wise financial management. Again, it's not sexy, it's not exciting, but it is vitally important to our freelancing business. So next up, we're going to talk about unifying our personal and professional lives.